Hi. Hopefully you enjoy that. Yay, it's in the background there. So just welcoming to our panel now. So we've got Ali, we've got Dave, we've got Laura and Sarah. They're in the room with us here for a discussion, a panel discussion around what we've just seen. So I think I'm going to head to Ali first, actually, just watching that. What are your reflections?
I'm just completely mesmerized watching the whole process pan out. I think it's just amazing, the work that you do. I think, for me as a doctor, I always thought there was nothing creative about healthcare. And the further I get into my profession, the more I realize that tapping into this creative side has so much to contribute, and it makes you a much richer person, a much richer doctor. So yeah, I love that you can bring the message alive. I loved when you did it last year or 2 years ago in person. I loved seeing it all happen. So yeah, thank you for that.
Dave, talk us through a bit of your thinking around creating that for us.
Well, first of all, thanks for asking me to. Yeah, as Ali just said, it was a couple of years ago now, which feels like 10 years ago because of time changing. But yeah, when Adrian asked if I could do something immediately, for me, it was just kind of these things that are connected, that are stronger when you put them together, or better, or just around that phrase of things that just work well together. I think with particularly what I do in the studio, collaboration is the most important thing. I can have an idea and I can doodle something, but it takes somebody else to say, that bit might not be right, or what if you added this to it, or what if, and I think that's how things are done in a better way. So yeah, it was quite an easy piece to come up with, because it was just all the things in my head that came out as, oh yeah, fish and chips, fish is good, fish and chips is better. So yeah, it was just fun, really, and that's what I do.
Oh yeah, and you're right, actually. I mean, that's the kind of theme of the day, really, isn't it? About how working together we become much better at what we do, really. Yeah, I'm looking at the picture in the background, actually, trying to spot all the different bits. There's the Beatles, actually, and Ali and I were just reflecting on how it's a shame we haven't got Frank and Will Flannery with us, but we would have been a bit fangirlish if they had, and I could barely speak when I interviewed him, to be honest, so it's probably a relief. Any reflections, Ali? We were talking about Frank and what we saw from Dr. Glockenflecken.
Yeah, I mean, I am a massive fan of Will and his comedy stuff. Not only does it make you laugh, he also raises some really good, like, human and political points in a kind of a nice and non-threatening way. And it's that whole thing of, you can have discontent with a situation. You can either use that constructively or destructively, and he's taken that and used it constructively. So he's regained some form of control, and I think, God, we all need that right now. That feels like there are so many things out with our control, within what's happening with COVID, within healthcare. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So I just feel like he's taken a situation that felt like it was out with his control, and he's used comedy to bring back some of that control and use his discontent constructively. And I guess it's the same with some of what Frank talked about, that the song that he has about kindness. If you haven't all seen that, you should go and look it on YouTube. It's really a lovely song. And it's that whole thing of, there are a lot of things out with our control, but we're in control of our own behavior. And we're in control of how kind we are to each other on a very basic level. And if there was a nice pandemic of kindness throughout our departments, then it would go a long way to pushing things in the right direction. So, I like the fact that these two guys have used their creative outlets to regain some control in currently an absolutely crazy world. Mm-hmm. And I also really enjoyed watching you and Adrian, and how much you were clearly in awe of Frank. It was quite sweet to see. You were like a couple of teenagers. It was just, I loved to see that. It was really sweet how humble you both were in his presence.
I don't know what you're talking about. so important.
And you know the bit where he talks about the chord that he apparently got wrong,
Yes.
and you know that mistakes are the mother of invention. I'm getting more and more into that feeling of it's okay to do some stuff and it doesn't quite work out. That fear of failure in healthcare is so strong that if you're gonna do something to move things forward, you're gonna have to hit a few, not dead ends, but a few things that don't quite work out. I don't know if you've looked up the guy Ken Robinson, and he talks a lot about education. And there's a really good quote. In fact, I've got it behind me. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. I love that. And so that's kind of, Frank doing the wrong chord, just that reminded me of that feeling of it. It's okay if it doesn't quite work out. Keep on going and you will get there. So yeah, I think there's lots of inspiration to be taken from the creative sector that we can bring into healthcare.
We need to do a bit more of it, really, don't we? While we've been, while Sarah's been listening, she's been doing a bit of her own art. She's got a lovely little doodle there, which is really nice. I don't know whether she'll hold it up to the screen. I'm putting you on the spot there, Sarah.
Dave, don't panic. You're all right. You're the only artist here today. But I kind of took a bit of inspiration from Kaylee on Twitter, who did some sketch notes, and I thought it was a good way to kind of gather my thoughts from that piece. I have been listening to Frank's album on repeat all week. For me, one of the main songs that kind of resonated was Get It Right. And there's some, and I've actually written down some of the kind of lyrics that I thought really resonated with LFE and Civility Saves Lives. People being congratulated instead of ridiculed or hated for admitting that they made mistakes. It's absolutely kind of what I feel with LFE. And going back to one of the very first conversations that I had with Chris Turner about coffee conversations, and there was something around people asking questions instead of talking without listening. And Ganga kind of mentioned it earlier with the response to the pandemic and not being listened to. And I thought, he could have written that song for this conference. I mean, maybe he did, we don't know. And I won't find out through Twitter because apparently he really hates it. But I think what I find, and obviously I kind of manage the communications for the West Midlands AHSN, and I personally am not massively keen on social. But what I love about today is that it seems to bring everyone together. And so my favourite thing during LFE is going through Twitter and looking at what people are putting on there. And, people making mushroom soup while they're listening, and, the screen hygiene and all that jazz. And what I found with last year at the last conference, and what I'm expecting I'll be doing again this year, is that whole time to reflect, because I feel like there's so much that comes out of the day. I can't take it all in. So I remember after the last LFE conference, I was on a train to Newcastle the day after, and I was just sitting the whole journey and just trawling through Twitter of everything from the day before and taking it all in again. So I often find that that's a bit of a way to kind of top up my wellbeing bank, is have a look at the LFE4 or LFE3. So yeah.
That's nice. Well, that's what this is about, actually. Restoring, giving us a little bit of inspiration, something to look back on together. We love looking back on pictures. So Laura is an absolutely vital member of our LFE team, and she creates things better than we say. Laura do a programme and she comes up with something better than we had ever kind of imagined. So it's always lovely to see that artist side of her come out. So yeah. What do you think, Laura, to what you've seen so far?
Well, first of all, I'm not really an artist. I'm in doing little bits and pieces. So please don't judge too harshly when you look at the programme. But I just enjoy working with different sort of colours and concepts. And I don't know, David, if you find this, but it's always a struggle between trying to do something artistic and then getting the message across. And that's where I find it's really helpful to get other people's opinions, which is what we've done with the programme and other bits of pieces we've put out. And I don't know if there's any other ways that you sort of resolute those two things, David, when you're doing your sort of posters regards to the art and the message.
Yeah, it's much like with anything, it's trial and error. And you look at things and it's about communication. And if it's not effective as communication, then it hasn't worked. And it's okay for it to not work. It's okay to say, yeah, I messed that up. I would say I probably spend 90% of my time going, yeah, that was a terrible idea, or that just doesn't work. But then the public only see the 10%, so it's okay. And I mean, particularly when we're doing live art pieces, which is only a small part of what we do as a studio, but I have to remind people who are doing it for the first time with me that the people behind you don't know what it's supposed to look like. So you can make a mistake, and as long as you don't tell people I've made a mistake, no one knows you've made a mistake. So yeah, I think all of it is trial and error and fun. Just enjoy. Yeah, that's what any form of creativity for me should be. That it is something that's fun and that you enjoy, and not a chore. If it becomes a chore, it's not being done properly, I don't think.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we need to bring this a little bit more into our work. I mean, it's difficult when you're in a clinical setting, isn't it? I mean, obviously it's important to do our best, get the best outcomes, etc. But I think there's a whole load of stuff we can think about, from art to kind of sustain us, to help us work better together, to think about how we innovate and create our working environment kind of better. I'm conscious of time. We could talk for ages, but it's probably lunchtime. So we've got a treat. Well, first of all, I think we need to show you the results of the poll that we did before. I was supposed to do this at the beginning of the session, but I forgot. So this is just a reflection on, how much access to debrief people have. So I think that was kind of better than I expected, actually, with about half of people attending a debrief, but we obviously still got some kind of work to do there. The second thing, the next thing we're going to share with you is actually Frank played us 3 songs on, like, if you thought I was bad at the interview, you're going to have anyway, sorry in advance, but we recorded Be More Kind, we recorded Get Better, and he recorded not Get Better, Get It Right, sorry, and Little Changes. And actually, I don't think we've mentioned yet, so the long forms of these conversations, you'll notice some clips in and out, will be released as podcasts, so we will make more stuff available. But we're going to play Be More Kind at the first bit of the lunch break now, and then after that we'll show the posters again, and then we'll come back at 1:30 for our afternoon session. So just before we go to Frank, I'd just like to say thank you to Ali, Dave, Laura and Sarah. I'm going to do joining us, and obviously to Will Flannery and to Frank Turner for their contribution. I hope it's given you something to think about. Oh, Adrian, have you run another poll? Is there another poll?
Yeah, this is on, you'll have seen it. The delegates can see this. Okay. It's on the role of art, comedy, or humour and music in healthcare. So we'll run that for another minute or so and then show the video.
Yeah, lovely. Time for lunch, everybody, and see you back later at 1:30 for this afternoon sessions.